Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So I have been working in South Minneapolis for over 20 years, and I've seen so many. It's hard to name just one, so I'll talk mostly about what I'm currently involved in. But a little closer. Okay. So I'll just briefly mention some things I've seen over the years where people have talked about the lack of food, good, healthy food in their neighborhood, and they've created farmers markets and community gardens. People who've talked about immigrants who have come here and they've seen how their medical needs aren't being taken care of because the doctors they meet with don't really understand their culture, and they banded together and talked and actually went to the medical school to change the way that medical students are educated. I've seen organizing projects to stop the garbage burner and to stop the power lines, and I mean there's been so many amazing things that have happened over those 20 years in South Minneapolis. The project that I work on right now is called the Backyard Initiative.
Yes.
And that's working on health in South Minneapolis. And how it started, I was involved in it at the beginning, was where the Alina headquarters moved from out in the suburbs to Lake Street, to the old Sears Tower. And they said, well, we would like to, the outgoing CEO of Alina said, I want to do something before I leave, and so let's try and improve the health of people in this community around the headquarters. And because some of the worst health disparities were in South Minneapolis. And so they came up with, they worked for like a year to come up with a plan, and part of the plan was community engagement, but they had a whole lot of other ideas. So then they thought, well, how are we going to get this thing called community engagement going? And so they invited the Cultural Wellness Center, where I was working at the time, would you get a group of people together and tell us what they think, basically tell us what you think of this plan. Well, we got about 50 people in this room with the CEO, and everybody pretty much said, well, what do you need us for? You've already got your plan. So what do you think community engagement is? Okay. Why are you, it's not just, we're not going to sit here and approve the plan. That's not community engagement. And so they were very strong talking to the CEO, and to his credit, he said, okay, we're going to scrap the whole plan. We're going to start all over, and you tell us what you want, what would improve health in your community. And so what we did is we went through a community engagement process, which was a lot slower than what Alina wanted at the beginning, where we just said, okay, let's bring people together over dinner, we'll eat together, we'll talk to each other, we'll talk about, well, what do we think we need as a community to be healthier? And we had, I think at the beginning there were 12 different groups that came up with 12 ideas for improving health. And there's 9 groups now still going, and that was like 5 years ago. And these are amazing, just amazing groups, what they're doing in the community. So there's one group that's called the Anchor Families group that says, one of the problems is we used to know each other. We used to know each other's kids' names. If one of our kids got in trouble, they knew they were safe on the block and they could go to other houses. And so let's have an anchor family on the block, and then we'll have gatherings to get everybody to know each other on the block. And so then when we'll know each other's names. And so amazing things have happened from that, where there was a what is it called, where a child is kidnapped? Amber Alert. And because they were looking out for each other, one of them noticed, just what? 5 minutes, okay. One of them noticed a car parked on the block and then it didn't belong there because they had really gotten to know each other, who belonged on that block, and it was just sitting there for a long time, and they called the police and found out that it was the person who had taken this child. And so then there's a group that is, there was a diabetes group that got together, and a group of people said, hey, we could actually support each other with our diabetes and just meet together and talk about how do we take care of ourselves. And they've had amazing success with helping people to eat healthier, to lose weight, that a doctor, they say, could never do. There's an Out in the Backyard group that is supporting youth who are LGBTQ, and they also have, I don't know if any of you have participated, but they have Zumba in the park. All year long at Powderhorn Park. They have free Zumba for anybody who wants to come. I think it's on Monday nights. I think they might have another night, or Saturday now. But they have, I've gone by there where there's 100 people doing Zumba together. Now that's building community. And then they have another group, is a group of Somali youth who have brought together the generations, the elders and the youngers, to talk together on a regular basis. The youth do spoken word, and they help the elders to understand what their experience is living here and how to try and bridge that generation gap. And so I always think of these things as just foundational. They're foundational efforts to build community, to build the connections that a strong community needs to do anything. So that, and I think of engagement as building that foundation, so that if there is an issue that comes up, then you've got this really strong foundation of relationships, of people caring for each other, of trusting each other, of being familiar with different cultures, and being comfortable with that, and being willing to ask questions of each other, and really being everybody knowing that they have power, that they have a voice, that they can actually contribute something to their community, and cause change. And so that's what I've seen in the backyard, is this foundation where people have come together of all different cultures and are trusting each other and are supporting each other in whichever project they're working on. If I run out of time, 2 more minutes. Oh, great. I'll tell you about a couple of the other initiatives, because I just think they're so creative. There's another one that is looking at they're looking at the food system, the local food system, and how to improve that. And they found that one is that most, and this was maybe a couple years ago, so I don't know what they would say now, but that most of the like community gardens and the food building systems were mostly led by European Americans, and that there weren't enough people of color who were really involved in the food movement. And so they, and they're mostly African American women and men who really wanted to engage, cultural communities around the food issues. And so they started with building, helping different families in the community build little gardens for their children and engage the children in growing and understanding how food comes from the earth. And and then they found that they wanted something on a bigger scale. So then they started looking at how they could work with other organizations in the community to encourage entrepreneurship. So looking at the whole system, not just the gardens, but for instance, if you grow a lot of beans in your community, could you sell those beans that instead of, that you might have a lot more than you can eat, to someone who would can them or freeze them, and they could develop a business. And so you're creating within just your neighborhood a whole system of people, taking care of each other, basically by providing healthy food. So they're looking at these local systems, which I think is another thing that can come out of that foundation of community engagement, of how does the community take care of itself instead of relying so much on external, things that you don't have control over.